Oh, and where's my tea? Water. Assortment of beverages.
Water. I'm going to drink some water.
Hello, everyone.
Hi there.
Welcome to the podcast of the nerds. I'm Ian.
And my name is Jack.
And yes, do I still count as Ian without the beard? Isn't that weird? I never really thought about that before. I just cut off part of me and threw it in the garbage.
Isn't it? It's technically dead skin hair, right?
Is it?
It's. I think so.
I thought it was like concentrated protein or something.
Oh, it's related to skin, isn't it? I don't know. It's got that stuff. Is it creatine or something
Which
like that?
raises the question: if it's concentrated protein, do vegetarians have bad hair?
You are brave saying that. Oh my god.
So, usually I have a beard because, like, when there's nothing up here, there's nothing here. It's just too much.
I always get so used to you with the beard that, like, when this morning, like when I saw you from the first time this morning, I'm like, holy hell, Ian doesn't have a beard, and it's always so you don't look bad, but by any means,
No,
it's
like
starkly different.
Yeah, it's like 10 years difference off the face.
Yeah. You look considerably younger.
Yeah, which is fine. I mean, I don't really care about that side of things one way or another. It's just so bright. God, I am a pasty, bright man.
That's true.
The beard is shading, so I'm less reflective.
Yeah. You're reflecting a lot more light than you usually do. You're the moon of my life, Ian.
I'm usually you're my sun and stars. No, you're my moon and stars.
You're sun and stars.
Oh!
You did it, sun and stars.
I did a
Well
reference.
done. You're a real Game of Thrones now.
What are you drinking?
Just water again in my hydro flask. Again, not a sponsor.
Not a sponsor,
should be.
but we would. I'm drinking jasmine tea today. I started with the orange mandarin. That's cinnamon spice, which I think is currently my favorite. Jasmine smells delicious.
Yep.
It's the best smelling tea that exists, but it tastes like actually picking flowers and eating them.
That doesn't sound very.
It's not very good.
No.
You know, a lot of times flowers smell amazing.
Yeah.
But then, but most things that smell like flowers taste terrible, like air fresheners and stuff.
Yeah. Well, I've never eaten a flower or an air freshener.
I've eaten a dandelion or two in my time.
Oh, actually, I think when I was a kid, I might have done something stupid and stuck something in my mouth I shouldn't have. Oh, somebody clip that, huh?
Today on the podcast,
we will be going through our list of shame films and what we've been watching.
Yeah. So why didn't we do a podcast last week? Oh, I was wrecked.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So last Saturday, a week ago from Saturday, I did the Patreon hangout for Restless, and I published Fool for Love after editing for like 30 hours in 2 or 3 days. Because at the end, I'm so fed up with how long the script process took me that I'm just like, let's edit. Come on, just edit, just rip it off, just get it done. And so I got that up Saturday. I'll talk a little bit about Fool for Love. I like to do a little post-up conversation on this podcast after I publish a video. But Sunday, I was just kind of buzzed. And then Monday, it was like I face-planted into a wall.
Yeah, you crashed hard.
Yeah, and I had some friends come over Sunday night. We did like Ryan, who has appeared on this podcast, my friend Carl. And we sat out back. We did the social distancing thing and all of that. But Monday, I felt sick. I felt like just worn out, broken down, like a little sniffly or whatever. So I was afraid that one of us had either given it to each other or gotten it from each other or whatever it was. It turns out
Dude,
I was just wrecked, just burned
yeah.
myself out the last week or two of. It's so high. I'm so high stress, Jack. Jack,
Really?
yes, I'm becoming.
I couldn't tell. I didn't know that.
I don't know if I've
Not
mentioned
at
this
all.
before, but
It's new information.
I'm a little annoyed.
Sorry.
No, you're good. I'm a little annoyed at how often the word unclench applies to an emotional state that I happen to be in, because I'm so
Okay, yeah.
tense all the time.
Yeah.
And partially this has been a consequence of quitting drinking. One of the go-to ways in the past, I don't know, 10 years that I started to use as a way of unwinding is alcohol. And, I'm doing the work with like finding healthier replacement beverages. I'm not gonna try and quit ice cream until the pandemic is done,
Yeah.
because I figure one thing at a time. But just in general, I really struggle to unwind.
But yeah, I understand with what you said before, because like every time I get a scratchy throat or a sniffle, I'm like,
Yeah.
is it time? Is it finally my time? Uh-oh.
Yeah.
It's scary.
It'll be nice when when you just think it's the flu again.
Yeah.
And the thing
yeah,
is,
it'd be nice.
flu season is coming.
So what's that? Is that going to be like super flu season? Like
Well,
what do we?
I mean, people are going to get sick and they're going to be thinking they have COVID and they just have a cold, you know?
I wonder if COVID will get worse. No, no,
Yeah.
no. Stop it. Stop it. Do not go down that road.
Right.
No.
So,
I'm stopping that mental track.
yeah, we're supposed to be your source of positivity,
Yeah.
or at least not that. But anyway, Monday when we were supposed to record, I crashed. I slept most of the day. Got up. I think I slept 17 hours that day.
Whoa.
Yeah, I mean, cumulatively with the night before, yeah, all of that, but like during the day of. And I was just not, it wouldn't have been a good recording. Maybe we get to a point where you do a solo podcast without me.
That sounds terrifying. Let's do it.
Yeah, be a good time.
It's funny. I don't think I've ever slept 17 hours in my life. Like when I was a teenager, I could do a solid 12, maybe. But these days, I'm a terrible sleeper. I inherit that from my mother, I think. But funnily enough, since the type 2 diabetes diagnosis, and I've changed my diet, I've been sleeping a lot better. Because when I get into bed, I usually watch something on my phone or my laptop or whatever. But until I'm tired enough to sleep, I've been watching MythBusters as of late. It's been fun to revisit that. But I typically like when I switch everything off and close my eyes, I seem to fall asleep like pretty quickly, rather than laying there frustratingly for like an hour.
It's funny, since I quit drinking, my sleep has gotten dramatically better. I still struggle to fall asleep because that's part of the unwinding thing.
Yeah, that's the thing I used to struggle with, but I seem to be doing okay right now. Touch wood.
Yeah. So we're gonna do what we've been watching, a little bit with the listener comments, and then follow that up with the fanfic reading. Here is going Terri Botta. I believe we're on chapter 29.
So, Ian, what have you been up to since last we met?
Well, okay. So I finished the Fool for Love video. It was an absolute bear of a script, and as is ever the case, I felt like it was a bear because I made it a bear, but
You made a bear. Sorry,
maybe that's maybe that's just inevitable when you're writing, recording, editing, and doing something yourself. If something's going to be a challenge, it's because you made it a challenge or whatever. So that's a little bit weird. But Fool for Love is a one of the handful of transcendent episodes in the series where
It's a big deal.
it's a very big deal. It's a better episode than the show, I would say.
Yeah,
I, like,
watching it recently, it's like the way it's shot. It's pretty much the most interestingly shot
Yeah.
episode in the entire series.
When you think about it, when I say it's better than the show, what I mean by that is like the show has sort of a what is it called? The hump graph. The show has a range in terms of average quality, and most of where you see most of the episodes sort of fall somewhere in the middle. Some are way worse, a few are way better, and then there's one or two or three episodes that just break the graph completely. And
Right,
in my
and
mind,
this is
though,
one of them.
yeah, in my mind, this is one of them. The Body is one of them.
The Gift.
The Gift probably is one of them. The Gift is amazing, but that's almost like the best Buffy
Prophecy
episode.
Girl as well. Prophecy Girl,
Yeah.
definitely up there. Conversations with dead
Yeah,
people.
yeah, like
Yeah.
where they sort of, I don't know, the transcendent episodes, the ones that I don't know, I think are better than the genre that the show plays around in. In Star Trek: The Next Generation, that's your Inner Light episodes. I don't know. I think a lot of the Data episodes are kind of break the boundary of the show. So there's that. The last one that I can remember, Hush. Hush is another. Once More with Feeling. There we go. Those are the ones I was sort
Yeah.
of blocked up. The last one of those I reviewed was Hush, and I didn't end up feeling satisfied with the video. I haven't done an edit stream in a little while, and I know the community really enjoy those, which I love. But I also feel like I don't know if editing offline for me is better for the quality of the video. Editing in a stream is better for keeping me in the seat and editing
Sure.
and doing the work and so forth.
Yeah.
But I almost feel like editing offline like if I'm editing online, I'm also paying attention to chat. I'm sort of doing
Yeah.
that one part moderator,
Yeah.
2 parts editor thing where
Personally, I feel as though this video should have been done offline simply because I don't think it should have been spoiled for anyone. Like
Well, that's-
that intro, holy crap! Like I don't think anyone should have known that intro was coming.
it's so
It
funny.
was so good.
I keep forgetting about that the intro exists. Yeah, the Buffy versus Dracula intro I had been thinking about since season 2 or 3.
Right.
The Downy Woods are dark and deep, but I have promises to keep.
Yeah.
Because of the reference to faith. That poem to me is
Yeah.
about death and or suicide. So it's so interesting how it fits into season 5. This time I was just like, what would be a good intro for this video? And I was like, well, it's
And it
Spike-centric.
was-
Why don't I read his poem?
Yeah.
But it came
And
together.
It was also, yeah. Oh, it came together really well. But it was also one of the first pieces of the video that you edited because you showed me that intro a good 3 or 4 days before you actually finished the video itself.
Well, the writing process took a month, which is so frustrating to me to say that out loud. But it is what it is. I think the quality
Yeah,
is in there.
You do get some complaints, of course, about how long you take, but
Wow.
quality takes time.
Well, and
You can't-
the trick
you
with
can't
those
force it.
the trick with those complaints is always that if you're trying to do anything online, the comments that will bother you the most are the ones that you actually secretly are worried are true.
Yeah,
But someone else who comes along and calls me, a soy boy college indoctrinated cuck, I'm like, okay. But the people who are
Right.
like, there's been so few videos this year, I'm like, oh, that kills me. because because it's bothering me. But
Yeah.
so that was the first thing. The video is a big one, and then the other thing that I found was kind of I was struggling with was that Guys Will Be Guys is a kind of pretty good episode. It's a fun, if slightly forgettable episode from Angel's early season 2 run. And I found some connections and made a video that I ended up being pretty proud of.
Yeah, I mean, that episode, like, I've never disliked it or anything, but you elevated it to something much more than I thought it was.
But yeah, so
With that video.
to do that before a video where the expectations are really high, I just stressed myself out
Okay.
horribly.
Okay.
Where I was like, well, this one's got to be amazing. So, writing challenges within the video. Death is a huge topic, and how to cover death without giving anything away in the gift. So, the question of, we've already had the idea of death in relation to the Slayer role raised in Restless. Okay, killer, you're on your own. And the first Slayer saying that the Slayer, is not that the Slayer is nothing but a killer. I can't remember the exact language of that. But then Dracula says that you're a hunter, you're just like us, which is a reference to where her power comes from and her being just a killer. And so there have been hints all along the way, but then Spike saying death is your art and saying that she has a death wish is the first hint, other than sort of faith dreams and stuff like that, is a major piece of foreshadowing to how the season ends.
Right. Yeah.
So I got a little bogged down in, well, if I have to avoid all of that, what do I talk about?
Yeah, that's really tricky. That's difficult.
Yeah, it's an episode 7, so episode 7s are loaded with stuff about the entire season. Another thing I keep thinking about in terms of death and the gift is I keep coming back to how challenging that one is going to be to talk about. I've always understood the metaphor as in what Dawn and Glory represent as halves of Buffy's identity. And I mean, always understood. I'll say, I read Mark's book and understood what the two halves of the. I'm not make myself sound smarter than that. But in light of Fool for Love and in the shadow of her speech where she says, I don't know how to live in this world if these are the choices, if everything just gets stripped away, I don't see the point. But her sacrifice at the end, while I understand it metaphorically, has an air of suicide to it.
Yeah.
And so discussing that, especially the way I discuss things, is going to be challenging. And
Right.
in this episode, I always thought that it's not just what she says, it's what Spike says. If you take Spike at his word that every Slayer has a death wish, then it implies that her choice in the end of that had an air of suicide to it.
There was an element of screw this, I'm done.
Right.
See you later. Right. Yeah.
Right. And she had
Okay.
checked out the episode before and gone into a catatonic
Right.
state, which is sort of
Yeah.
like
I mean, it's very much
state of
played
shock.
off as a sacrifice for the world and for Dawn, but at the same time, there's definitely an air of that. Now you've mentioned it.
yeah. And one of Camus' 3 choices, in terms of approach to life, faith, choice. I mean, essentially, choice is what I've summarized it as, and suicide.
Yeah.
The choice of
Just
whether or not
physical
to take
suicide.
one's own life amounts to the fundamental question of philosophy, which is why it's in this season. And Whedon kind of subverted the idea and turned it on its head, but it would be easy to mishandle the discussion. And I think the way that I write these episode guides too, to mishandle that would be bad.
Right. Yeah.
In the sort of emotional, heavy-handed, I wouldn't say it's heavy-handed, but sometimes heavy-handed, but high emotion kind of way that I do. Anyway, and then there's the usual pandemic and family nonsense that was slowed down my process on this one. I realized my writing comes from a very emotional place, even when I...
You've only just noticed that?
Yeah!
Buddy, I noticed that before I even met you.
See, like, the conclusions... Sorry, I just dropped a USB hub. Just checking my audio. Audio seems fine. The conclusions very clearly come from an emotional place, but I'm just sort of coming to understand that all the words come from an emotional place. The whatever area that is that I'm writing from with an episode guide is requires battery power. And being absolutely used up by emotional events outside of work, whether that's the pandemic or family or whatever it was, absolutely destroys my ability to focus and makes it very hard to write. And things have always been slow, but if anything, I'd say 2020, the videos have been sticking to a more regular schedule, albeit a very slow one.
So. Yeah.
I think there was a 2 or 3 month gap in 2019. But anyway, now that I've started to realize that that's kind of the way I work, I've started to try and corral sources of emotional distraction. So, the directions I leaned into with the essay when I was trying to answer that question, so what do I write about, were the filmmaking and Spike's character. The filmmaking, and I apologize, Jack. I know that when we do these sections, there's not always a ton for you to
No,
to
by
add.
all means,
So
man. That's fine.
we'll figure out a more elegant way of doing this, maybe.
It's all good.
But the filmmaking matched action edits were an editing technique that really first inspired me to be an editor. There was a Nike commercial that aired in 2002 when I was in college that my professor used to demonstrate to us what a matched action cut is. I hadn't watched it since college in around 2003. And it was actually made by Ridley Scott's film company, which I didn't realize, which not by Ridley Scott himself, but I watched it before we recorded. I got chills. I showed it to you for the first time, and I have just loved that technique since. So seeing it used to such great effect in this sequence. The other thing that's remarkable about this sequence is I've seen it in a commercial with no dialogue, and I've seen it in films where it's used once. Like in Minority Report, there's one matched action transition where Anderton gets the mind wipe thing on him. And, I put it in the video. Or when the ape throws the bone up in the air in 2001 and it cuts to a satellite or a spaceship. But to build a whole sequence out of multiple versions of them, I think is really astonishing. To use it so well narratively.
Yeah, and I think Fool for Love is probably the best example I've seen of it. To be honest, it's been done well a lot, but I don't know. There's something very special about the way that episode does it.
That's why I say when I say it's one of my favorite sequences of any movie or television show, I mean it. Because
it's very well done.
The not only the degree to which I care about the characters, but I've never seen a sequence constructed in quite that fashion where it's a flashback and modern times, and it's and they just fit so well together.
Yeah, it's so easy to follow. It's not distracting or jarring or anything. It flows so well.
Yeah, it's incredible. And then the other one was Spike's character. The big moments for me were when Drusilla bites him. I had not noticed until this video that she grabs his junk.
Me neither.
Yeah.
Me neither.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
She grabs his junk. He's heartbroken, and she kills him, and he dies in a lot of pain. Ow, ow, ow. So he dies turned on, heartbroken, and in intense physical pain. That explains Spike to a T. All three of those things are, it's like, oh, Spike's character, of course that's how that happened. Of course. Angel was drunk. I don't know. So that was really cool because I thought that moment explained so much about Spike, the way Spike works. I thought my explanation of the show's portrayal of love was as clear as I've managed to make them. And one of the weird byproducts of doing the videos the way I do is like my thoughts kind of clarify as we go along. So take a little piece of an idea in season 2 and then refine it a little bit in 3 and so forth. And I've never thought about my favorite part of the video though was the part from Beauty and the Beasts. Mm-hmm. Because if you can't, then love becomes your master and you're just its dog. Right. I've always hated that line.
It's a bit on the nose. It is
a bit on the dog's wet nose.
Yeah. Literally.
Yeah, it does it. That's the theme overcoming the fiction, where it doesn't sound like something that character would say, and where we've talked about. We talked in the Patreon hangout, which we missed you quite a bit.
I was busy.
But we talked about where, and this will be a part of the question later on, but shows that are so driven by theme often, in my mind, feel like they're for kids. Because it's like, wow, what did we learn today? Because the whole episode is about, if your neighbor tries to call you over, don't go over there, or whatever it is. I guess that's not specifically themed. That's more.
It's almost like it's trying to teach you something rather than just entertain you.
And Buffy most of the time doesn't do that. It walks that line where you could just watch the entire show for entertainment, for the plot, for the drama, for all of that.
Certainly, yeah.
And I did the first time through.
And the horror elements. Yeah. When I first started watching, when I was like 10, 11 years old, I just thought it was cool because it was horror and it was funny.
And in my mind, that is the way things should be. In my head, there's a hierarchy to anything that I create, and there's a hierarchy of priorities. Number one is to be entertaining. Not to do all the academic-y kinds of things, but to make an entertaining piece of content. And so, in my mind, in order to get that proper balance, the show needs to have that as its focus. And that includes, sort of a realistic portrayal of all the characters, side characters. So him saying, you're just its dog, it's like, okay, I get it.
Did you guys see what the episode is called?
It's Beauty and the Beast, and there's a werewolf in it. You're just its dog. They're like,
wink, wink. Nudge,
I don't know why
nudge.
that worked okay earlier when he's like, everybody's got problems. Everyone's got demons, right? I loved that bit. And she goes, tell me about it. Because Buffy has actual demons and the metaphorical demons. But because people say that. People say, I've never heard anyone say love becomes your master and you're just its dog. It was just, I don't know. It was just very weird. So my favorite part of this video was the connection between love becomes its master and you're just its dog. And I may be love's bitch, but at least I'm man enough to admit it. Because now that line serves a purpose to me. In my head, I'm like, oh, there's a connection. Everyone loves I may be love's bitch. And so I for me, it was fun. Anyway.
It's okay. I get it, buddy. I get
it. Kind of tooting my own horn about that. But there you go. And the other thing that I'd never thought about until this episode was that absolutely what Spike says might be bullshit. that Buffy has a death wish, and
Okay.
so I was just, I mean, I was just kind of thinking, like, does she have a death wish? And the way I answered the question without touching on the gift is because season 5 echoes events in season 1. You know, but by the end of high school, you feel you have yourself somewhat figured out, and then real life comes along and kicks your ass, is the way Douglas Petrie phrased it, which is why the repetition of lessons, and why in Angel there's that Angel season 0 trilogy in Buffy, The Wish, Amends, and Gingerbread, which sets up the Camus triplet couplet anyway, and but those 3 episodes, the lessons of those 3 episodes reoccur that's Epiphany. I know it's important to keep fighting. I've learned that from you. Am I a righteous man? Like, all of the essence of Angel's themes are in those 3 episodes. But in life, things just hit you over the head over and over and over again. And the pull of the id, the pull of impulse and this to seek comfort and to just say to everything, and to just sort of regress, means that those lessons are relevant many times over. We never just learn a thing and we're done.
Sure. Exactly.
So I answered it with Prophecy Girl. Because Buffy went down into face the Master knowing that she was going to die, does that mean she had a death wish? We'll get into more of that in season 5.
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, then where does his thing come from? And then it hit me. I want to see how it ends.
Oh, right.
And I went, oh.
Yeah.
Spike, the vampire who seeks out slayers. Being killed made me feel alive for the very first time. He's the one with the death wish built in.
Right. And that's the thing. If you're an immortal being, after like 100 years or so, you're gonna get pretty tired, right?
Yeah. I mean, both shows ask the question, like, what does I'm working on this with Darla a little bit, but what relevance to life does death add? Is it just cruelty and unfair, or does mortality in some way inform meaning? Is an endless existence meaningful? Can it be meaningful?
Right.
And so Spike sort of being driven to seek or risk his own death in pursuit of meaningful experience suggests something for mortal beings. Is all I'm going to say.
Right.
The other thing I've been consumed by this week, since we're talking about what we've gotten up to this week, destroyed by, it's Destiny 2.
Good old Destiny 2.
And we've been playing quite a bit.
Yeah. We were actually playing earlier today.
How did we get into this? What were we playing before? Destiny has erased my memory of all other video games.
So, we were playing Halo, because...
and you didn't know they were both Bungie?
Sorry, what?
You didn't know they were both Bungie?
No, I didn't know they were both Bungie. I did have the original Halo on Xbox, and I remember it being really good, and maybe it was really good in 2002, but in 2020, it's look, I was having fun with it, but that last level holy shit,
that level killed me.
That sucked the life out of me, and
yeah. So there's I think it was level 5 or 6, and some people who know Halo
6, I think.
may know. But you land, you're outside, you run in, and it was like copy paste.
Yeah, it was literally a copy paste. Like every room was exactly the same.
Yeah, so you're running.
Go across a bridge, go into a building, go across another bridge. Just kept going.
Same bridge, same room, over and over
Yeah.
and over again. And it was the longest mission that we've done so far. So,
Yeah, it took us like 40 minutes or something. That took a long time. And
and
I
we
don't think
failed
we
more
even
than
died.
once.
Huh?
We failed more than once too.
Oh,
That
yeah.
was the one where
Right.
we didn't realize that the co-op Master Chief Collection doesn't preserve spawn points. It just starts
Right.
the entire act over again. So we got more than halfway through it and then said, well, let's play tomorrow, and it started over again. And I said, do you want to play some Destiny? Because that burned me out. And Destiny is modern Halo. It's not really Halo, but you can feel the legacy of Halo in it.
You can tell that it was done by the same company that made Halo, the same studio. Like you
Yeah.
can tell.
So it's a looter shooter,
Yeah,
space magic, science
it's
fiction.
a first-person shooter. And yeah, it's
It's
yeah.
I don't normally get hooked by hyper grindy games other than Dota, but you're not really grinding for anything in Dota.
And you're not a big first-person shooter guy, whereas I am.
Yeah.
Like that's right up my alley. But I also love loot-based stuff as well. I find it very addictive. That's why I love the Diablo series, and this kind of reminds me of Diablo in that sense.
I mean, I beat Diablo 3, but you're not really supposed to beat Diablo 3 once.
yeah,
You know.
you're supposed to go.
Yeah, you're supposed to go multiple times. But I am
My favorites,
hooked.
my favorite's Diablo 2. I love Diablo 2, and just quickly, I heard Blizzard is going to release a remaster sometime. I heard it was coming this year. I don't know if that's actually true or if it's actually going to happen, but Blizzard, please, I will buy 10 copies, please.
Yeah, I don't know. So I think I talked about this when I played Assassin's Creed. There are games that just feel like giant to-do lists.
Yeah.
Like they're Assassin's Creed is one of those, and I just get a little burned out and
I love
finished it.
Assassin's Creed though.
But for some reason, fetching the groceries in this game, all the grocery lists, I've just gotten hooked.
I've been trying to figure it out, but I just don't understand because they've just managed to, even the grinding, they've made it entertaining somehow.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Well, the shooting is very satisfying.
Very.
It-
The movement is well. If you're playing a warlock, the movement's very
the
satisfying.
the verticality of it is satisfying, and it has some of the most beautiful science fiction levels.
It's
It's
gorgeous,
so
and I don't.
pretty.
It's pretty gorgeous, especially for. I don't think it's that taxing of a game either. Like it kind of is, but it's not. It's not like a flight sim 2020 or whatever.
Yeah, they remind me of like old heavy metal magazines, the 70s and 80s comic book comic book monthly. Those like I can't think of the artist right now, but I'm picturing his work in my head.
Okay.
The spacescapes, the Princess of Mars kind of spacescapes with guns and magic and all of that. It's really pretty.
I think I can see a little bit of Halo in the level designs, a little bit. It's like, but just a better
well,
Halo.
yeah, we were
Pretty
playing Halo 1,
Yeah.
which came out in 2002.
2, so almost 20 years
It's
ago.
still a remarkable game. It's still very satisfying. We just hit that one level, and I was like, "You want to play new Halo?"
Yeah.
In this case, Destiny.
And we had also played a little bit of Destiny 2 previously. And so I was like, sure, let's go back to Destiny 2.
I said that thing we'd take a break. I did not
Yeah.
expect it to sink its claws into me. Also, it's free. I've put
Yeah.
before, so I just bought the Battle Pass, but before I did that, I put 25 hours into it.
I put probably a little less, but then I also bought the battle pass for
and the Battle Pass is
$15 dues.
$10 in America dues, and it's I'm just very hooked.
Yeah.
And I started playing it with a friend, and who doesn't like first person shooters, and even she was like, "Wow, this is really pretty and a lot of fun." I was like, "Yeah,
Yeah. And you've been grinding hardcore
hard."
too.
Well, they're doing a seasonal event where you have there's 5 armor slots: helmet, gloves, chest, feet.
Yeah.
4 armor slots. Oh, and then a belt.
belt.
So yeah, 5.
Yeah.
And for the seasonal event, they gave you 5 pieces of armor, and each piece of armor is a grocery list.
Yeah. You have to,
And that you have to
fulfill objectives to level it up.
once you level, and you can level it up 4 times, and every time you level up, the grocery list's reset.
Yeah.
And so I've been like, okay, I guess I'll do this with my
And
Sunday.
when Ian says grocery list, it's just a bunch of objectives like kill this many people, get this many orbs, and play this multiplayer mode. It's pretty basic stuff, but it's a lot.
Yeah, it's high speed art in the style of heavy metal meets Halo, being driven by a spreadsheet in the background. You know.
Yeah.
And that sounds weird, but it is. A few times that we've been playing, every time we play, I'm like, this is so relaxing.
Yeah, it is.
You know?
Even when it's really hectic and really intense, it still
It's
feels chill.
so
It's
kind
odd.
of relaxing. Yeah, I don't want to play Doom. I don't want to be all wound up and uptight. But just sitting there.
I love Doom, but
Yeah, well, I'm not an FPS guy. Just
Yeah,
sitting
right.
there blowing away, aliens.
the new Doom has also got a heavy metal soundtrack, and I like that.
Yeah, that would be a lot for me. The other thing that has been pairing kind of nicely or perfectly along with me is my new binge. Maybe you've heard of it. It's called Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah, maybe. I think so. There's this dude that makes videos about it. You should check him out. He's pretty good.
I
He's
don't
super
like
talented.
pretentious cucks. Did you?
Sorry, it made me choke on water.
You and I tried to do a mutual rewatch last year and kind of petered out.
It fizzled out. I don't even know why. It just did.
I think you got busy and I got ahead, and then
Yeah.
I think I hit season
Funnily
4.
enough, yeah, busy.
Yeah.
That's also why I haven't played a lot of Destiny the last few days, because I've just been flat out busy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I got to season 3 or 4 the last time before I stopped. Anyway, I started on Friday and I got to today's Monday. I got to Beauty and the Beasts.
What?
Yeah. I'm at a desk a lot all day. And Sunday I did nothing but sit here and grind Destiny and play.
Yeah. I saw you online on Destiny at like 4 o'clock in the morning your time.
Yeah, I was up till 5 that
Wow.
before I went to bed. Yeah. So I finished Gilmore Girls. I'm going to record a conversation with Lonnie from Chipperish Media to talk about it because she has seen it and you have not.
I haven't.
I finished Gilmore Girls Asterix, which I will explain when Lonnie and I have that conversation. And Jack, Buffy is so comforting.
It is. Yeah.
Watching Buffy not for work. That might have been
I
what
can
happened.
imagine,
I may
yeah.
have caught up to where I was in the episode guides and then started
Yeah.
feeling like I should be writing. So we'll see when I get to season 5 in the binge.
Well, I even noticed the difference when I'm rewatching episodes for the Patreon hangouts. I have a notepad open, and it's more stressful, I guess.
It's a little bit,
'Cause I'm
it's less for
Yeah.
joy. And so rewatching
It feels like I'm back in school in English doing an essay on the film or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So rewatching it, I've been I have weird mixed feelings. The feeling of I wish that I could watch this for the first time so that all the emotions were at their peak again, so that it was as maximum engrossing as it was originally.
Yeah.
That experience is gone. And there's a weird kind of like grief or frustration where you're like, oh, I'll
I
never,
know
I'll
the
never get to
feeling.
enjoy this for
Like,
the first time again.
if there was one show that I could erase my memory of, it would be Buffy, or possibly Breaking Bad, but definitely Buffy.
Yeah, mine would be
I would love to be able to
Next
experience it
Generation.
for the first time. Ah, yeah.
Yeah,
Right,
Next Generation and Buffy. But on the other hand, and I'm still feeling things. I mean, I stopped, like I paused and put down the controller for Prophecy Girl, and I could not watch Angel Angelus be a dick to Buffy in surprise or Innocence.
That is harsh.
I couldn't watch it.
You got a lot to learn about men, kiddo.
You were a pro. I knew you couldn't handle this.
Oh.
Yeah, I couldn't watch. So I was
Such a
just
dick.
nope, skip, and that's the only part of it I've skipped. I watched Inca Mummy Girl. I enjoyed Inca Mummy Girl the most I have ever watching. I enjoyed season 1 way more than I ever have.
You know the one and only episode I skip, and everybody hates me for it or gets angry about it. Witch. I don't like Witch. I don't know why.
It's
not
pretty
a bad episode.
dry.
It is, and it's Freaky Friday in Buffy form. That's all it is. There's
Well-
nothing to it.
Well, I love the trophy.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah,
The trophy is
yeah.
like Twilight Zone levels of creepy and
Yeah.
horrifying.
Yeah, but I can skip it big because I know it happens, and so when Oz is looking
Yeah.
at it and he's like, "Oh,
These
the
eyes follow you everywhere I go. I like it.
Yeah,
The other weird, the weird thing that thing that episode holds is that it is in some way referenced in every season of the show. That's the weird claim to fame that episode has, is that in season 4, Amy the Rat comes back briefly.
very briefly.
I don't remember what the reference is in season 5. Oh, well, Willow has her as the rat. In season 6, she figures out how to undo the spell, and in season 7, Amy comes back and
causes trouble.
yeah. So Witch has and Bewitched, Bothered, and Bewildered in season 2 is the relevant point.
There is a bit of a through line.
There's
there,
a big
I see,
through line from Witch.
but I don't know. I find it boring. I'm just like, I just want to get to the next one,
Yeah.
please.
Well, I mean, I think you can take that position on a lot of season 1.
Yeah,
But,
yeah. I just find that every time I say it on like a stream or whatever, a lot of people like, wait, you skip Witch? Why? And
Yeah, I mean,
that's okay. That's okay.
when you just kind of like do what the rewatch that I'm doing, I've just kind of resigned myself to every episode. We're playing every minute of every episode. I'm not skipping anything.
Oh,
And so I
wow,
just
for you, that's a big
yeah,
deal.
but I have Destiny
The
open.
ADD brain.
Destiny open for the like shoot. So it gets you through some stuff.
See, I don't do that. If I'm watching a movie or a TV show, I'm watching it. I'm not gonna have it on in the background. I'm not a background
I have
kind
to
of guy.
feed the distraction addict part of my brain, and either I'm feeding
But
it
you're
with the
already
show.
playing a game.
Yeah, but Destiny is like, it requires no thought. Destiny
Okay.
is all impulse, and all my high level thought gets dedicated to the show. But I need to feed both parts because otherwise I get itchy.
I just wouldn't be able to like focus. I'd tune out and start paying attention to the show, and then I'd die in the game. I can't do that. I'm not. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
You and I are very different in that regard, my friend.
Well, the two emotions that I had, I wish that it was new, but I also, that newness has been replaced by this deep sense of comfort that the show brings me. It is,
Yeah.
the first 3 seasons are high school nostalgia, and then season 4 is that transition season, and then 5, 6, and 7, you can barely remember the high school seasons? At least I can't.
Yeah.
Feels like a different show.
It's strange. It does become a different show. It really does.
But when I'm in the high school seasons, I'm like, man, I don't want to get to 5, 6, and 7. But when I'm in 5, 6, and 7, I'm like, man, the high school seasons were so cheesy, or whatever. Like the response
Yeah.
is.
For me, I find it comforting just because the show means so much to me. I mean, I do have a little bit of nostalgia associated with it because I mean, I started watching for the first time when I was like 11, 10 11 years old. I didn't finish until I much later on, a couple of years ago, 6, 7, 8 years ago now. But
Well, for me, it's
yeah.
the American high school experience is where I'm like, ugh, I remember,
Yeah,
theater and
the
tests.
high
And,
school different. The high school experience here is kind of different
Yeah.
to what you see in
I
America.
thought that might be.
Not entirely, but a little different.
Well, Jack, what about you? What have you been up to this week?
Well, speaking of Buffy rewatches, my brother and I think I've mentioned before how I'm taking my brother on his first journey through the Buffyverse, and we watched 3 episodes just the other day, and they were Crush, I Was Made to Love You, and then of course The Body. And so yeah, I got on Discord with my brother, and we were in a call. And he's like, "Do you want to watch Buffy?" I'm like, The answer to that question is always yes. So let's watch Buffy. And so I saw where we're up to. I'm like, "Oh, dude, we have to watch 3 episodes, okay? Please, 3. Just trust me. We have to watch 3 episodes." He's like, "All right, cool." And so we get to the body. Well, the end of I Was Made to Love You, and my brother, that was the only thing he was spoiled. He had spoiled for him was Joyce's death.
Sure.
But he had kind of forgotten by the time we got there, so he was a little surprised. But yeah, so we got to the body, and I think I've also mentioned before how my brother, he's a big soft teddy bear like me, but he's also very introverted, so he seems very stoic. He's feeling things, but he won't typically show it.
Sure.
But pretty much from the moment Buffy breaks down with Giles, when Giles gets to the house, both he and I were just in tears, and like he cried for like pretty much the entire episode, and it was kind of like I don't know. That's testament to the show's power to make my brother do that. Yeah, no, he's not a hard ass or anything. He's just kind of stoic and a little very introverted.
So evocative. It is so.
And it's masterful the way it's done.
Yeah.
Too, like the lack of music and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just artistically, it's incredible. But I mean, it doesn't feel cheap ever. It doesn't feel like a tearjerker. It doesn't feel like it's. The lack of music to pull it off is incredible because you can emotionally manipulate people with music so much.
Yeah.
So that it doesn't. It not doing that is.
Yeah.
A lot.
And it is very artistic, but it doesn't cross the line into artsy-fartsy territory, if you know what I mean.
I mean, first of all, I don't. Artsy-fartsy for me feels like.
I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, but
Well, no, to me, the term artsy-fartsy to me means alienating style with no heart.
Right. Okay.
But I think that some people could apply that term to some of the stuff in the body, like the blurry shot of the camera or the way they shoot the EMT guy by cutting off the top of his head.
See,
I think those all serve wonderful purposes, and there is heart there. But I'm saying, like, a cynic could apply the term artsy-fartsy to parts of the body.
True, but to me, that stuff and like the shot where Buffy puts the paper towel over her vomit, and you see it soak up. To me, the way I interpret that stuff is like when you're in shock, there are these like tiny weird details that stay with you and stick out to you on recollection of the event, I guess, and. So I don't mind those shots, and
I don't mind any of it. I'm just saying, like, it is parts of it to me feel like I don't know if it reaches the status of high art, but it does reach the status of high art. But because of that, I think that, a cynic could levy criticism at it, and it would be like, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Say you weren't a fan of the show and just watched the episode cold, it would be like,
Yeah. And it's funny, I've seen that episode now, like, probably, like, a dozen times, because I've watched it one-off. I think you, me, and Jess watched it one-off one time, didn't we? I swear we did a while ago. It was a couple of years ago now, and it was a big cry fest as well.
Was that a night that Jess and I would remember?
Probably not.
Probably not, yeah. No, I don't remember that.
But I do recall that. But yeah, so it starts, I'm like, hey, this might be the first time I watch the body and I don't actually cry. But no. You don't watch the body and not cry.
Oh, especially if you watch it in the run. And
that's what we're doing.
Yeah, it's interesting. Maybe I'll do some live stream rewatches. The last one I remember doing
could be fun.
was for the body.
That was a heavy one. Well,
yeah, that was where the footage for What the Body Means to Me came from, which is on the channel. Which it's funny. All of the videos in the What the X Means to Me series do pretty well, except for that one, and I think it's because people just don't want to go there. That was the whole reason I did that stream that night, was because I was struggling to, like, it's that thing we come back to. It's like, you know what I'm in the mood to watch tonight? Schindler's List. Let's watch Schindler's List,
See, I kind of do stuff like that though, because it's kind of cathartic. It's a release.
I do that. Yeah, there's just a difference for me. If I want that emotional catharsis, I watch Becoming Part 2 or The Gift. The Body is different. That's a different level of...
I mean, I wouldn't go to The Body for it either, but I do sometimes seek out sad stuff just because I want to have a cry or whatever,
Yeah, Becoming Part 2 and The Gift, I think, are emotional, but there's redemptive aspects to it. There's heroism. There's... The Body is just suffering. It's just people suffering.
Yeah, for like 40 minutes.
Yeah, and as much as it's personally resonant, especially if you've experienced a loss, making the choice to go and invite something like that into your life, not the easiest choice sometimes. So I just that's my guess as for why that video hasn't done as well as the other ones, which I don't care about. I just think that the data is interesting to me. Yeah,
it is. Yeah. But yeah, my brother, interestingly, he said that the hardest scene for him to watch was Buffy telling Dawn at the school.
That's new. I've never heard that. Someone say that was the toughest scene.
Yeah, same. Like, I thought he would say, like Anya.
Anya's the big one.
Yeah. But no, it was Dawn. Yeah.
Huh.
So, interesting. But yeah, other than that, Ian, I've had a very, very stressful couple of days.
I know why, but why don't you tell the people?
Yeah. Well,
we're recording very late at night, partially because of the stressful couple of days.
Yeah, I was considering not talking about this publicly, but screw it, I'm going to anyway. So right now, I am dealing with an infestation of bed bugs. Yes, freaking bed bugs.
Yes.
And yeah, I was somewhat self-conscious and nervous about talking about it because I guess I was worried about being like judged, that people would be like, "Oh, you have bed bugs, you must be dirty and whatnot." I'm not. Look, I live in public housing. I live in an apartment building in a major city, and unfortunately, sometimes things like this are just inevitable, and they just happen.
I remember reading about a massive infestation of them in New York. That they don't care.
Yeah, exactly, and like My apartment is relatively clean for a single bachelor's pad. I do my laundry all the time, but it just happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just been a lot of work getting everything sorted out and dealt with. I've done probably close to 15 hours work in 2 or 3 days, like physical, physical work. Later in the week, I'm having an exterminator come in to spray the apartment. But in order to get ready for that, I basically had to pack up the majority of my belongings and move them into storage. And everything that's made of fabric, I've had to wash and dry. And I've also had to throw away a lot of the stuff, but in some ways it has been a bit of a blessing because it forced me to do some spring cleaning, but and sort of some decluttering. But it's just been a stressful nightmare, and I've been losing my freaking mind.
I've dealt with infestations twice. The first one I was when I was in high school. I went back to Illinois for a summer, and when I got home, I went to bed that night, and I remember feeling kind of tickly. I was like, what the hell is... it's just weird. Felt kind of itchy. Maybe I thought maybe I was dry. The Martins are a very dry clan. The next day, a friend came over, and he was sitting in a papasan chair. This was the 90s, in my bedroom, and he was looking up at the ceiling, and he said, dude, do you realize that your ceiling's covered in baby spiders? And I look up at the ceiling, and the ceiling is shimmering.
That is my literal hell. I hate spiders.
And I got up close, and thousands of baby spiders are translucent. Thousands of baby spiders. An egg, while I was gone, had hatched over the summertime. And I looked down at my pillow that I had slept on that night, and it was covered in baby spiders. And they had been crawling all over my face that night that I was sleeping. And I freaked out. I tore everything out of the bedroom. I washed everything. I set off bug bombs. There's something about insect invasions that feel... like privacy violating. I don't know how to describe it. Like it's
invasive.
It's so invasive,
and it feels gross. It feels really gross.
Yeah. I felt disgusted. I showered. Yeah, I remember dealing with that. And the other time was I have cats, or right now I have cat, and they got fleas once, and she was just scratching, and she was scratching, and I was like, what the hell's going on? And I go over, and, you love, when you're someone like me, single and childless, you invest all of that love in the tiny fuzzy animal. And so I pick up my child, Jack, my child,
firm, baby.
and I start brushing her hair, and I pull her hair aside so I can see the pink skin underneath. And I see a little black dot crawl across into the thing of her fur, and I freaked out. I was just like, get off her! And I ran and grabbed some shears, and I started shearing her. When I did, and I sheared off a big clump of her fur right here and looked at it, and there were 2 fleas on it, and I threw it aside. And then I looked at what I had just done, and she looked like a lion because she had just the mane sticking out like this, and she was just looking at me like, what the hell are you doing, man? And I went,
yeah, like, you okay?
That might have been an overreaction.
Do you need me to call someone?
Yeah, so I took her and had her dipped the other day. But again, it's that feeling of invasion.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, you have no right. Get off my kitty!
Yeah. How I noticed was I started getting what I thought were like rashes on my arm. I'd wake up and I'm like, oh, there's all these itchy dots here. What the hell is this? It must be getting a rash. I should get some skin cream or something. And then I saw this weird bug crawling around, and I'm like, what the hell is that? That I've never seen anything like that in my life. What the hell is that? That's not a cockroach. That's nothing I've ever seen in my life ever. And so I thought for a second, I'm like, what if it's a bed bug? So I googled, what does a bed bug look like, and it was pretty much identical to
Yeah.
what I saw, and I had a meltdown.
Yeah, yeah, I get it because you suddenly, I mean, home is a sacred space, and to
Yeah,
have it
yeah.
invaded is
and
horrendous.
and it's like, it's such. I feel shameful about it, man, and
You
I
shouldn't.
shouldn't. When I told you, I told you that, and I'm like, oh, but I swear I'm not dirty. I swear I look after myself, and you're just like, dude, it's okay, calm
Yeah,
down, it's
dude.
fine. And then you're like, I'm not judging you, and I'm like, I'm judging myself.
Yeah. Now, if you had
Yeah.
well, I don't know. I don't want to. I was going to say something that I don't want to offend anyone listening. Um. Well, good luck with that. When is the
Yeah.
guy coming over to spray?
Uh, Thursday, they're coming in, and everything's more or less done now. Like I'm ready. And so all I've got to do is just camp out in my apartment, guerrilla style. In my apartment is practically empty, and so I just gotta wait it out. They're coming on Thursday, but then they're doing a secondary spray the Thursday after, and it's just to make sure they're all dead. Essentially, like
Yeah.
the first spray should do the job, but it's just to make sure, I guess.
Well, you figure there are eggs. If eggs hatch
Yeah.
in the intervening time.
Yeah. Yeah, but then after that I can move all my stuff back in, and I'm gonna rearrange things. Like I've got a desk that I've been meaning to put my computer, my television on, so I can. You've been bugging me for ages about a second monitor. I should be able to do that now, so that's good. Yeah. So it's just been stressful, and I'm physically and mentally exhausted, but it's done, and now it's just waiting, I guess. But yeah, another thing that I've been kind of well not doing, but for the last little while, I've been in a state of, shall we say, reflection and contemplation.
Okay.
So let me get a little serious for a second. I don't want to drag things down, but let me be a little serious.
Bed bugs are serious, but go ahead.
Well, true, yeah. So I've dealt with depression and anxiety in varying degrees and frequencies since I was a teenager. And about 6 or 7 years ago now, I found myself in a really dark place. Things weren't good. I wasn't well. At that point, like my depression had kind of reached like a critical mass, shall we say. And the symptoms started to manifest in really physical ways, and it really like freaked me out. I couldn't eat, and it's not that I was like starving myself. I'm not like, oh, I'm sad, so I'm not gonna eat. I just had no appetite whatsoever. And it'd get to like midnight, and I'd realize that I hadn't eaten all day, and I would force myself to eat something. But after a couple of bites, I'd feel like physically ill and just want to throw up. I was sore all the time. My limbs and my back and my shoulders were constantly sore. And I just I couldn't sleep. And even if I did manage to get a decent sleep, I was still exhausted. And like it got to the point where I thought there was something physically wrong with me. Like I had some sort of illness or sickness or something.
Well, I mean, depression on that level does manifest physical
Yeah, I didn't
symptoms.
realize at the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it definitely does. And after doing a bit of research, I realized that it was just the depression manifesting in physical ways, like the muscle aches and stuff. I think that's like got to do with like you can like it makes you tense, and so something like that.
Also, for me, if I don't move enough, I get stiff, and depression destroys motivation.
Yeah,
And so
yeah, it does that.
when I was dealing with it, I got aches and pains just from complete inactivity.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like it seems illogical.
Yeah,
Like some of the symptoms seem illogical because you're just like, wait, so like I feel sad and down, but it's making me actually sick. Like what the hell? Um, but anyway, so I went to see my GP and I told him everything that was going on, and he suggested that I go on a medication. And now, statistically speaking, I know this is a controversial topic, medication, antidepressants, but statistically speaking, the most successful form of treatment is a combination of medication and therapy. So to cut a long story short, for the last 6 or 7 years, I've been on a medication called mirtazapine. It's marketed in the US as Rumeron, and I think here it's called Avanza. It's an SSRI, which stands for Selective Serotonin Reuptake Inhibitor. And on a very basic level, what it does is it boosts the level of serotonin in your brain to like a normal level. But I want to make very clear that it's not a happy drug. It doesn't make you feel like you're walking on sunshine, and it's not meant to. All it does is sort of it puts you on a level playing field, so then you can start doing the work that you need to do to
yeah,
get better.
yeah. I
You
was on
can
an
start.
SSRI after my ex and I broke up early 30s. So
Yeah.
I had a similar experience at the time.
Yeah, yeah, and so it just sort of it puts you on a level playing field, so you can start fighting back and doing all the things you need to do to be healthy. Um, but yeah, that was 6 or 7 years ago now, and I'm still on it. And look, there's no real like time limit that you can say on these kinds of drugs. But
Well, what's the motivation right now? Or what have you been thinking about in regards to?
well, I've been thinking about stopping or weaning off it because I I feel as though like look, it seems part of me feels like it might be a bad time because you know COVID is going on, the world is in a bad place, things are scary and whatnot. But
Well,
at the same time,
it's not an anti-anxiety medication, though, right?
oh, it is though. It is. Yeah,
Oh, it
yeah.
is.
It's
Okay,
it's
yeah,
yeah. Sorry, I didn't mention that. It's an antidepressant slash anti-anxiety.
okay.
Yeah, so it does help in that regard. But on the flip side, I just kind of feel like I'm ready. You know. And so like I haven't made a decision yet, but
What do you think defines
it's
that space of ready? I mean, like, if you had to sort of lay a finger on it, it's like,
well.
how did you know?
Well, I feel so much better within myself, but also like my life is just vastly different now. I have better support systems. I have better strategies, and like part of my issue back then was my life was meaningless. I had nothing going for me
Sure.
really. Like I was in a black hole of nothing. And you know like I've just got so much more in my life now that I'm excited about. I have things to work towards. I filled my week with stuff to do. You know I've got like maybe 2 days a week where I literally don't do anything. Every other day I've got something going on, and that's great. Like I love that. Um, but yeah, it's just led to like a full reassessment of my mental and emotional state overall, and I don't know. I just feel like I'm ready, but yeah, I haven't made a decision yet. But if I do, I'll slowly wean off it, and just for anybody listening, if you're on a medication like this, do not stop abruptly. Like,
Right.
absolutely do not. That's you want to wean off it, because if you don't, you can run into some pretty bad side effects of going cold turkey, shall we say. And yeah, I guess that's pretty much me lately. I just want to finish by saying that anything I've said here should be taken purely anecdotal.
Yes.
And it's not, I'm not giving anyone advice about anything whatsoever. If you're struggling with these kinds of things, please see your doctor.
As astute as we both look.
Yes. And as pretty as we both are, a pretty face doesn't equal a wise brain.
Yes, we are not doctors. All right, so let's go on to what we've been watching, or rather our list of shame. This week, or rather since we last talked, I think we missed one on this list, but maybe not. So the two movies we rolled were Good Morning Vietnam. Good Morning Vietnam. All right, so Good Morning Vietnam is it was a very famous, very successful movie, so I don't think there will be a lot of people who don't know what it is. Filmed in 1987, the woefully inadequate IMDb summary is: in 1965, an unorthodox and irreverent DJ named Adrian Cronauer begins to shake things up when he's assigned to the U.S. Armed Services radio station in Vietnam. Movie stars Robin Williams and a very young Forrest Whitaker and Bruno Kirby. Was directed by Barry Levinson, who also directed Rain Man, The Natural, and Sleepers. For some reason, I remembered him as like a go-to 1990s director, but I think I'm confusing him with Barry Sonnenfeld, who did the Men in Black, among others. So Robin Williams is a loosey-goosey DJ that broadcasts for an uptight army. Basically, some things in the plot happen. I grew up watching this movie and remembered it as hysterical. And
I had an idea in my head of the same thing.
Robin Williams is still incredible. I mean, his is just a different kind of... It's so pointless at this point to try and describe the... Talk about once in a lifetime, completely unique character and ability and all of that. He's just, sort of effortlessly charismatic with endless amounts of energy and all of that. And I think this was his breakout movie. He had done one or two other movies before, but this was the one that kind of transformed him into actor among stand-up comedy or TV star, which is what he'd been doing at that time.
Okay.
But I still prefer the later stuff like Good Will Hunting or Insomnia. I think he did non-manic characters wonderfully. And when Adrian Cronauer is not on the radio, he's sort of that contained...
Yeah, he's more subdued.
Subdued, thoughtful, to me more interesting character. I mean, if I want to, But some of the comedy has not aged particularly well. And it's the 80s doing the 60s in the 2020s. Is when we're talking about the jokes. Good Morning Vietnam is as old today as Guys and Dolls and Rebel Without a Cause were when it aired, when it was first made.
Wow.
Yeah, so like perspective on time passing and culture moving along and all of that is sometimes difficult, especially when you grew up through the era of a particular movie. Things date, things age. And this is one of the newest movies we've watched that I felt had dated. Do you know what I mean when I say that?
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
I got the same vibe from it.
Self-evidently, Spartacus has dated and aged, but you still try and look for the experience. There's it's kind of like watching camp. There's a certain amount of theater that you sort of expect that you have to sort of
Yeah.
enjoy for it being cute or dated or whatever.
Yeah, and you have to be a bit more lenient with it, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I started to feel that about the humor in this one, where I was like, there were some blind jokes and some short people jokes and some gay jokes and all of that that were driven by his energy, but not necessarily. I believe anything that can be fodder for humor, and anything should be fodder for humor. But the success of the joke, the higher or more significant the challenge level of the material, the more you really need to nail and stick the landing.
Right.
And in the 80s, that was less so with those kinds of topics, where it was just sort of going in that territory was shocking or funny, and sort of naturally charismatic and interesting. But now it's just kind of like, I think there was a joke like, who's driving the Jeep, Stevie Wonder kind of thing. But it was Robin Williams saying that. And of course, yes, I that's me explaining or killing a joke, and I realize removing context. Context is everything to humor. So I don't know. I just sort of found it's still very entertaining. There's still a bunch of stuff in it I really enjoy, and whatever is coming out of his mouth, I think Robin Williams is still he's one of the few celebrity deaths that actually really shook me up at the time, because his work is so, it has such a big place, and he's such a unique and specific and sort of one-off performer, entertainer.
Yeah. One in a million.
Yeah. So I was bummed that, in whatever minor way that it had dated and started to feel sort of an era that we're no longer in anymore. I was like, that sucks. But the other thing was I'd never noticed the plot before. Yeah. His performance really overshadows or dominates all of the plot elements. You're just waiting for him to be back on the radio. Yeah. To really enjoy it. But if you take away those scenes and just witness the plot, it's not that great.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's nothing to it. Yeah.
When I was doing a little bit of research, the other thing that I oddly enjoyed, and I mentioned this a couple times while we were watching, was the performance of his boss, Sergeant Major Dickerson. Which I just got the name, which is pretty.
Yeah. I like that.
The way I just said it.
That has to be intentional.
Yeah. It's played by J.T. Walsh, who I was really taken by how good the performance was. He was kind of effortlessly a dick,
Yeah, he was mean, and he was believably mean.
It felt utterly convincing, and it was a wonderful foil contrast to Robin Williams' joy at the microphone. I've never watched the movie and gotten that from it before, but I was just kind of impressed by J.T. Walsh, and I looked him up. He's one of those guys. You've seen him in A Few Good Men. He was the mayor in Pleasantville, and I didn't realize he died in 1998. And I found a quote about him by Andrew Johnston that I thought was really interesting. J.T. Walsh is invariably referred to as a character actor who specialized in villains, but that description doesn't quite do justice to what he did. The typical Walsh character was a plot device, really, serving either as a moral counterpoint to the star of the show, or as an Iago-like figure egging on the hero a way likely to lead to the protagonist's downfall. These characters were often self-important authority figures defending the American establishment from the individualism represented by the movie's heroes, or crooks who thrived by exploiting the hypocrisy of the system. Walsh didn't just make a career of playing bad guys. His performances offered a sort of running commentary on the power structure of American society.
Wow, that's quite the tribute.
Yeah, I thought that was great, and what an interesting... Especially for a character actor, for someone, for a Richard Jenkins type who who tended to play bad guys. But the more I thought about the things that I've seen him in, as the mayor or an admiral in A Few Good Men and so forth, the more I felt that was really kind of apt and interesting. So that was my viewing of Good Morning Vietnam. Pretty good, and I was sort of like, oh, you can't go home again. What about you?
Well, yeah. As you kind of touched on, Robin Williams gives a hell of a performance. Great. And yeah, I miss that man so much. There's a lot of funny comedians in this world, but I can only think of a few that I would describe as a comedic genius, and Robin Williams was one of them, and the only other one I can think of would be Jim Carrey. But yeah, I had seen this sometime in my youth, and but it was such a long time ago that seeing it now was like seeing it for the first time. I remembered nothing except for "Good Morning Vietnam."
Yeah, that's the icon.
But yeah, by the end of it, I just felt kind of unfulfilled, I guess. Narratively speaking, it just doesn't have a lot going for it, and it's kind of bare bones and basic, and a lot of the plot is either just weak or not fleshed out. Like the romance subplot between Adrian and the Vietnamese woman.
Yeah, where there is
it.
no relationship. The she can't speak English. They go on one date. The love relationship of the movie is his relationship with the girl's brother, right? That's the friendship. That's the love relationship that we become attached to.
That was much more believable.
It was developed. They're both fully fleshed out characters. They both do things for each other. There's conflict, all of that. That should have been the final goodbye at the end of the movie when he leaves Vietnam. Instead, the girl shows up, and they have had barely any dialogue. They have no chemistry. They had a charming, cute kind of date scene where she brings her family.
Sure.
But there was no catharsis necessary for that relationship. So yeah, it was just it felt like a late 80s kind of paint by numbers script with a remarkable entertainer in it.
Exactly.
Barry Levinson, the direction is solid. I love Bruno Kirby, J.T. Walsh, Forrest Whitaker. The actors are all were great. But the script, when I say paint by numbers, I mean the script just felt, and here's where this scene goes, and here's where this scene goes.
Very, very basic. Very, very basic. Yeah. But yeah, Robin Williams gives a great performance, and he was very entertaining. And at least for me, he was pretty much the best part of the film, really.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's Robin Williams. But yeah, afterwards, to satisfy my own nerdy curiosity, I decided to look up the real Adrian Cronauer, because this is based on a true story.
So it says.
Sorry, what?
So it says. It was based on a true story in that there was an Adrian Cronauer and there was a war called Vietnam.
Yes, exactly.
Or a war in Vietnam, rather.
Yeah. But he sadly passed away in 2018. But I stumbled on a real recording of his radio show in Vietnam.
Oh, did you?
I was... Yeah, and I was so surprised by how much it actually reminded me of Robin Williams' performance.
That's very surprising.
I don't know if he was able to listen to some of the recordings to get ready. It just had the same kind of like energy and whatnot. But it was only a small clip I found too. So yeah. But I also found a video of the real Adrian Cronauer talking at an event, and he. At the event, he gave a speech, and he more or less said that the film was 99% nonsense. pretty much the only accurate part of it was that he did teach English as a language, but he didn't teach his students swear words and New York slang and all that stuff. Yeah, no, he wasn't sent away. He served his tour of duty, and then he got an honorable discharge. The thing where they're driving in the Jeep and they hit in a landmine, and then they have to hide from the Viet Cong. All of that, like none of it happened really. But yeah, like it's overall, I don't think it's a bad film.
No, it's not bad at all. It just, you know, if I made a list of 80s comedy classics, that might have been, you know, you start with Ghostbusters, I think, and work from there. But that might have been one of the ones that kind of came into mind. But I don't know if it's as timeless as Ghostbusters is timeless. I have watched it since.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. I think Back to the Future holds up pretty well. I know some people
Without a doubt, yeah.
have problems with part of it. I think that that one has aged, but Good Morning Vietnam raged a bit faster than those have been, is all I'm saying.
It just didn't feel like a complete or compelling narrative. And something very, very 80s about the plot and just how it all takes place. And I can't quite explain it other than to say that it's very 80s.
There's also high volume of montages.
Yeah.
You know.
Which is a very 80s thing as well.
Well, you know, the military montage in a war film is a go-to staple kind of thing. But I think there were 4 or 5 of them in this. And, of course, it's because they had all of this footage of Robin Williams improving. And so, of course, you do your bread and butter staple. But, you know, unfortunately, I, have been doing critical watches of things now for 6 years. And that's become, hopefully, a switch that I'll be able to turn off, but doesn't always shut off. And so just sort of looking at the construction of it, I was kind of struck by... It's a lot of montages without a lot of plot moving things forward.
Yeah, but Robin Williams was just brilliant with his improv. From what I've heard, his role in the in Aladdin as the genie was all improv. I think like there was a script, but he improved so much that they just used all the improv instead of the script.
Yeah.
Anyway, the next film that we watched, unless you have more to add, my friend. Okay, well, the next film we watched was The Outsiders from 1983, directed by Francis Ford Coppola and starring an ensemble cast of Patrick Swayze, Rob Lowe, Tom Cruise, and Ralph Macchio. And we have been forewarned before going into this one that it was not a good movie. We were definitely warned. But I still had some glimmer inside of me that thought there would be something. I don't know. Like I thought it might have some kind of style or aesthetic to enjoy given the setting and the whole Greases thing and whatnot.
So it was another movie from the 80s about the 60s.
Yes. Oh, I forgot to add the
1983.
Yeah, 1983, and basically it's about a group of greaser. There's a greaser gang, and they go to war against another gang.
The Socias.
One of them dies. Yeah, the Socias, and one of them dies, and then the one who commits the murder runs away with his brother, and it's a whole thing.
Yeah, a big part of the movie takes place in a church with them hiding out, and then there's a big gang fight at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
And then I forgot how it ends.
they come back and there's a weird there's a weird fadey what's the word I'm looking for here, cross dissolvey kind of it's strange.
Yeah.
And there's a weird zoom right at the end as well. But the thing that's stood out to me though the most was there was such a massive disconnect between the visuals, like what was happening on screen, and the soundtrack in the background. Like typically a song or a score should elevate what is happening on screen or like complement it in some way. But the majority of the music just didn't make sense in that regard and felt very out of place, right?
Yeah, so we watched the director's cut version of the film because you cannot watch the original theatrical cut in 1080. You can't watch the original theatrical cut in HD. So the director's cut of The Outsiders features 22 new minutes of footage. And so it was directed by Francis Ford Coppola. And Francis Ford Coppola went in and changed a bunch of the music in the film from the score from the guy who did the Godfather soundtrack. I'll say that again. He changed the score of the guy who did the Godfather soundtrack to insert instead the sort of bebop-y 1960s, completely inappropriate for most of the contexts.
It was so out of place, and I remember while we were watching, I was like, all of these songs sound like they belong on some 1960s film about surfing or
And
the
there
beach
were
or like
a lot of them.
yeah, and they all sounded like the same song too,
Yeah.
more or less. Even though I'm sure they were different, but they sounded like the same song, and I felt like I should be watching an episode of like Hawaii Five-O or something. Like it was very very.
So
strange.
the movie's opening theme was a Stevie Wonder song from 1983, and I felt that it was horribly dated. It felt. I mean, Stevie Wonder went through several different eras. His 80s era is very specific. There were strings. I don't know. It did not sound appropriate to the time and place and movie. So I went and listened to the soundtrack on Spotify, the original soundtrack for The Outsiders, and it's great. The original soundtrack is a score,
I
a
still haven't listened to it
traditional
yet.
score, and it's great.
Okay, yeah.
Now it's become this utterly
so-
surreal, exhausting.
What the hell happened?
I don't know.
Like it got so ridiculous that by the end we were making jokes and laughing.
Yeah,
about
during
it,
death
and-
scenes
Yeah,
and
and funnily enough, like because of that, I think this is the most fun that we have had watching film because it turned into just a like hilarious like session of shitting on this terrible film.
yeah,
It was
it's a
great
rare
fun. I loved
time
it.
when all of us ended up on the same page of this is
Yeah.
not good.
Yeah. But even like the ensemble cast was disappointing too because I thought it might at least be interesting to see a bunch of these super famous actors when they were young. Tom Cruise and Patrick Swayze and all of that. But,
Tom Cruise, Patrick Swayze, Rob Lowe, Ralph Macchio,
Macho. Yeah.
and what's his name? I forgot to write his name down.
So
Matt
I
Dillon.
apologize.
Uh,
Matt Dillon,
yeah.
of course. How can we forget Matt Dillon? Oh, terrible.
Do it for
But,
Johnny, Jack. For Johnny.
Johnny, yeah. But Tom Cruise was barely in it, and when he was so extra. He was so extra.
Yeah, I think it's his first role. It was most
Yeah.
of their first roles. They were all in.
Yeah.
I think Rob Lowe said he was
So young.
17
Wow. Okay.
when they made the movie.
Yeah.
He and Tom Cruise.
Yeah. Patrick Swayze had a bit more screen time, but not much. I think the actors with the most screen time were Ralph Macchio and Rob Lowe, which isn't a bad thing. Most films typically focus on one or two characters, but I was just bummed that I didn't get to see a full range of these other actors and to
Yeah,
see what they could have done in
it's
their younger
it's
years.
there's no one like Marlowe. Is this the face that launched 1,000 ships and burnt the topless towers of Ilium? Like, the Outsiders launched 1,000 careers.
Yeah,
This,
yeah, it did.
this
It did.
from
That's the
some
crazy
people that
thing.
have shaped
Yeah,
movies as we know them.
yeah,
So that was the reason to watch it. I know it's not. It wasn't a famous
yeah,
movie for
yeah.
um,
Yeah, I don't
Tom
regret
Waits
watching
was
it.
in it.
Yeah,
Sophia Coppola was in it.
yeah,
It's an astonishing collection of talent.
yeah.
For I think if we had watched the theatrical version that didn't have that soundtrack in there, I
Yeah, that might have been a bit better.
I think it would have been an average '80s movie. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah,
with an
yeah, exactly.
astonishing collection of talent.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, it was just so like just
I was just flashing on how they took every opportunity for them to be topless, and often
true.
wet. There are rain sequences, there are
There
shower
was that
sequences.
scene where they were all sweaty, and I'm like, why are they sweaty? Like everybody had sweat dripping off them, and I'm like, why? What?
Yeah, and we were
Why?
watching with friends, and we were like, "Oh, that's why they're sweaty. It's not for us, Jack."
Yeah, it's not for us; it's for the ladies. But yeah, I was surprised that it was a Coppola film. Since he's such a famous big name in
Well,
Hollywood.
he's kind of like George Lucas, where he
Yeah,
made super iconic movies in a very specific period of time, and then you looked up his IMDb page after, and it's like, wow,
yeah,
he made a lot of nothing after that.
yeah. Like there's some gems in there, of course, like the Godfather and whatnot. But his filmography is all over the place and full of a couple of hits, but a lot of misses, or just films that no one's ever heard of
Yeah,
that just flew under the radar. But yeah, I mean, on the bright side, like I said, I think it's one of the most fun experiences that we've had
sure.
watching a film. It's just not for the right reasons because we had fun shitting on it. But
Well, the
I
other
would still rather watch it again 10 times than watch Lawrence of Arabia once.
I think Lawrence is.
It's prettier.
I think I would rather watch Lawrence. But that's the beauty.
Really?
Yeah, that's the beauty of this.
Really?
Especially if we did it the
Really?
way our friend suggested, to watch it in two parts. So to
Yeah.
not watch it in one continuous one, I think I would enjoy
Yeah.
the experience quite a bit more. You
We
can
made a
recuperate.
we made a big mistake
Yeah,
there, boy.
yeah. Um,
But yeah, so what did you think of it?
uh, yeah. Everything we said. The other thing that was weird was the script. The the movie was based on a book, and the movie has sequences where you feel like, okay, this is the meaning, this is the scene. So it's a movie. Up until that point, it feels like a movie about culture and characters and so forth. And then there's a scene where two boys are standing on a hill in a sunset, and there's long, continuous shots of one of them as he recites Robert Frost's "Nothing Gold Can Stay," or
Stay Gold, Pony Boy.
yeah, or "Nothing Gold." That's not the right name for the poem.
Okay.
But you just feel it's so heavy-handed. And then that poem, of course, shows up later on, and then you have the on-screen visual montage collection of a character that died, telling another character to stay strong and stay gold.
Stay
And
Gold, Pony
yeah,
Boy.
and it was I felt the weight of the conversion from the novel, where some of those scenes may have worked well in a book, but were
Yeah. Okay.
not converted to film in a way that favors film's strengths. You know what I mean? I think a conversion
Yeah, I
like that
get
is
you.
difficult. Um, so yeah. Also, I can now only see Matt Dillon as the serial killer from the house that Jack built. Have you watched that?
No, but I mean, I know of it, but no, I
It's
haven't
from
seen it.
the director of Funny Games.
Funny Games. I don't think I've seen
Oh,
that.
okay.
Does that
Note
have to go on the list
note
now?
to our audience: I'm not recommending you watch either of them. They're sickening films.
So right up my alley then.
Yeah, he's also the director. He was also the detective in There's Something About Mary.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I remember.
I started to like
That,
her.
yeah, that film. I love it. It's stupid, but it's so
Yeah.
good. I love it. It's so good.
Speaking of detectives, Jack, and serial killers, we also watched the Hannibal season 2 finale. So we should do a Hannibal catch up, and we'll do one at the end of season 3. Now, are we
Ian,
spoiling?
I don't know.
I
Are
don't. I
we?
don't think
Should we?
Hannibal's popular enough that we should spoil. I think
I
that. I think if we
yeah.
have the conversation without spoilers, it would be better.
Okay. Okay. Sure. Sure.
So, but a couple of weeks before we watched it, you and I had a conversation where we talked about the end of certain shows or scenes in shows that made me sick.
Or climaxes and whatnot.
Yeah, so I think we all know how the first season of Game of Thrones ends, right?
Your old Eddard stuff.
Yeah, poor Eddard. And there is a season of Dexter, season 4 of Dexter, that has a sickening, horrible ending. And then
Oh, the finale of Dexter season 4.
yeah, and then sort of the finale of the show itself. And we started getting into a conversation about, and you took my point of view to be that I didn't like an unhappy ending.
Yeah, I interpreted it as you were saying this makes me feel gross and icky, so I don't like it. And my point was sometimes art is meant to do that, and
Right.
that doesn't mean it's bad art. Yeah.
Which was not my point.
No,
Yeah.
it wasn't. I was
Yeah,
misinterpreting what you were
my
saying.
point was like if you go to a certain place, if you take your audience to a certain place, unless you're in the horror genre, you really need to earn that place. And I felt like Game of Thrones is an example of a show that did. The end of season 1 of Game of Thrones earns that. It drives all of the characters for the rest of the series. It is such a significant moment for explaining how the universe of the show works. And there were hints along the way that he never said the good guys were always going to come out on top. The dire wolves were an example. There was lots of foreshadowing along the way to hint at. So it was set up. I felt like it was completely set up. We had an argument about the end of Dexter season 4. I hate that ending,
I love
and
it.
I feel like that is an example of shock over substance. That's a different conversation.
disagree.
Yeah, that one we might not want to
We,
spoil.
we should have that conversation on the podcast.
Yeah, we could do that sometime.
Yeah.
And then we talked about the end of Dexter, and I talked about how, by and large, your audience is moral. Your audience has a moral center. Your audience believes that they're good. And so part of the reason I felt like that ending was unsatisfying was because it didn't have a moral compass past a certain point. So
We're talking about
the end of
the
Dexter,
end of the series, right?
The end of
Yeah.
the very end of Dexter. So like to me, the end of the show that was set up from the beginning was Dexter gets caught. That was the ending, the payoff that should have happened. Everyone knew
That's
who he
what I
was.
wanted.
Yeah,
That's what I wanted. I thought he either should have gotten caught or he should have died. There should have been some resolution there, as opposed to him going to the middle of the woods and becoming a lumberjack, because there was such a focus on he can't control his dark passengers.
There was a focus on he can't be the real him around other people, so he can't be honest.
Yeah.
And the morality of what he was doing. Is it moral? Is it whatever? And there's that juxtaposition between he and the rest of the characters.
Yeah, and so the audience with the ending is left to think, oh, well, Dexter's still out there in the wilderness somewhere killing people, and that's not a satisfying resolution
No,
at
it doesn't.
all.
Yeah, none of the things that it set up pay off at the end at the end of the show.
Yeah. The reason why I would have loved to seen him caught is that I would have loved him to see all of his friends' reactions to finding out that he is the Bay Harbor butcher. That would have been such a amazing
Well,
I just
and
wish they did
completes
that.
his arc. He gets to be himself
it does.
around everyone, and sort of the moral ambiguity that the show sets up of is this right or is this wrong is addressed because justice is served to him, you know.
And he is portrayed as like an anti-hero in a way. So
I found that after a certain point that didn't hold up anymore. He was no longer an anti. He just had killed too many people to be considered an anti-hero. That or Miami was Baltimore in Hannibal was infested with an unreal amount of terrible people.
He still, for the most part, only killed other killers, though. I mean, there were a couple of innocent, quote unquote, innocent people killed, but I don't think it ever completely did away with that. But
that's the thing. Is look at the equivocating you just did.
I know.
There were just a couple of innocent people. That's the
only one I can
numbing
think
effect
of
that the show had after too many seasons.
Is when the only one I can think of is at the end of season 4, he runs away for a little while and goes AWOL, and then he kills a dude with the hatchet, and then comes back and everything's normal again. Yeah. Again, I think the show reached a climax in season 4, a great climax, and it was just never as good after that.
And I hated that. For me, it was a downward slide after season 2. But we're talking about Hannibal.
But I'm sure. Hang on.
Okay.
One thing. I'm sure you can agree that John Lithgow was amazing as Trinity. Right?
John Lithgow is amazing in anything.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Hannibal. Yeah.
Yeah.
We should talk about that.
So, so we're gonna go non-spoiler for the finale of Hannibal, which is gonna make the conversation a little bit more difficult. But I try not to build stuff up. You try not to build stuff up when you share stuff with people. I don't tell people I say, oh, I think you'd really enjoy Buffy. I don't say Buffy's the greatest show or one of the greatest shows I've ever seen, and it's going to change your life. All of that exists as potential for Buffy, but expectations have such a dramatic effect on people's experiences of anything, food, a show, a movie, whatever. How did I describe the season 2 finale to you of that?
You said it was the greatest finale you've ever seen of anything, and I was like, "Oh, you're really hyping it up, buddy."
I said, "Yeah."
I'm pretty sure I straight up said, "Oh, I think you're hyping up too much. So nothing is going to live up to what you're hyping here." And boy, was I wrong when I said that. Oh, I was... Ian, I still haven't recovered, and then it's been like a week or longer.
I had to wait a year and a half. So it ends on a cliffhanger, and it doesn't.
Kind of a cliffhanger, kind of. You don't see where certain people end up, is what I will say.
Yeah, if the show ended where it did, I think you could make an argument for it still being a satisfying series finale, if a challenging one. But in the same way that Dexter, way better than the end of Dexter,
Oh yeah, yeah,
or
yeah, yeah.
actually, I think any of these that we're talking about, I think you could make an argument that the way season 2 ends would have fit the show the way it was set up.
Yeah, but I just think if it was going to be the absolute end, we would need to see just a tiny bit more of what happens to these characters, a tiny bit. Yeah. I
So you're
can't
talking about
spoil
so you
here.
need is you you're not saying that you would change the outcome, but you would want a little
No,
bit of closure on. Okay,
exactly, a little bit of
yeah.
closure because as it stands, it's still a little bit open ended in terms of what happens to
Yeah,
certain
they left
people.
themselves open. The show was always at risk because it's such a weird time slot. The way I understand, we talked about it before, but the way I understand it is, someone at NBC, a high up executive, was a fan, and so kept greenlighting the show when it wasn't justifiable, by way of the audience that it had, especially because it aired after 10 o'clock on NBC. So that's why it got as much room as it did. But yeah, so they created an ending where it was unsure whether or not the show was going to come back, and it would have worked either way. And I think it's very interesting how successful, you can make an argument for it either way. And it is a miserable ending.
I I'm not exaggerating here when I say that I haven't been this devastated since the Red Wedding. Speaking of Game of Thrones,
Yeah.
I was Red Wedding levels of devastated, and I can't go into spoilers here, obviously. But what I will say is that, like, I mean, I didn't. You don't like Hannibal because of who he is, right? Of course, you
No,
don't
you don't.
like
Yeah.
him.
It's
But this
so
made
hard
me.
to explain. But yeah, go ahead.
But yeah, no, he's amazing and charming and all of
Yeah,
those things. But you
engrossing.
don't like him because you know he's the bad guy. But this made me hate him with a burning passion. I hate him now. I hate him.
I think that was my initial reaction. I think that was my reaction the first time I watched the show, where I was like, No,
No,
no."
I was.
There's a
You
one of
you.
the characters is on the floor and realizes what's about to happen before we do. And we rewatched the last 10 minutes of the episode, and he goes,
Yeah,
"Oh no, no, no," and you feel that
yeah,
sickness and
yeah,
devastation of, is
yeah.
that I mean, it's a sickness. You feel sick
Yeah, yeah,
at
and
the
you
thing.
saw how affected I was
Yeah.
when we were watching. I was so emotive and like like in just like complete shock in so many parts. Like it was a hell of a ride, man. And
So why is it amazing? We've just described everything we've just described sounds like a traumatic, terrible experience. Why is it amazing?
because it all makes narrative sense and it's all kind of wrapped up in a pretty little bow, kind of.
It's yeah. Well, yes.
And it's satisfying. It's satisfying. It's very satisfying.
That
Even though it's god awful.
yeah, it's brutally shocking, but it is so satisfying in a strange way, where everything is sort of
Yeah.
outed, and everything, the characters in the circle sort of have a clarity and understanding, that you've been waiting for to that point in the series. But
Yeah.
there's also, it's beautifully shot. I've never seen such ugly, grotesque things made to be
Even that
so beautiful.
even that scene, like I'm minor spoiler, but where Hannibal steps out into the rain, like holy shit.
Yes.
That was a beautiful shot.
Yeah, the
And there was another shot where you see raindrops coming down and they turn into blood.
there's
Gorgeous
a
shot.
falling sequence in glass that is incredible.
Yeah.
They use slow motion to show the inner life of a character in a particular moment that is incredible. The acting is incredible. But
And I even liked how the first episode of this season opens with showing you a snippet of the finale. So it's exciting when you see how that whole thing comes to fruition
yeah,
and takes place.
yeah, yeah. And there's a scene between two of the characters while horrible, grisly things are happening. And the scene should not have the emotional intimacy.
You talking Will and Alana?
No,
No.
I'm talking about in the last 10 minutes of the episode. There's yeah,
Oh,
there's a
okay,
scene
yeah.
between two of the characters where grisly, horrible things are happening, but it's so intimate and so it's like
It's intimate but devastating
it
too.
could it's almost like one of them is heartbroken and is taking the other one to task about it in the midst of this awfulness, and it should not work.
There was like a tenderness about it,
Yes.
and it was loving.
Yeah, there's
in a weird
it's
way.
romantic and loving and intimate
Yeah.
and grisly and horrifying and disgusting,
Especially with how that scene
and
ends
it
too. Like holy
should
shit.
not work, but it
It
works.
does. Yeah.
It works. It's so
Yeah.
bizarre how I don't know if the show has desensitized you at that, but to the violence at that point or whatever it is. But there's such an intimacy in the moment where there's sort of betrayal and there's honesty and there's whatever,
So
and one
hard
of
to
them
explain without
cries
spoilers.
after
Yeah.
doing something horrendous and you feel it.
So yeah, and didn't you say that you actually didn't notice that person cried?
I didn't until we watched it, and I went, "Oh
Yeah.
my god!"
Yeah, and it made it so much more
Yeah.
powerful, right?
Yes, him being the one in the scene that cried is even more that sort of cognitive dissonance to the action that's actually occurring. But it's so powerful and works.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a bizarre show.
I'm really glad you introduced me to it, because it's kind of this show has got me written all over it. It's totally my bag.
Yeah,
I love
this
it.
is the most I've enjoyed it. I used to think that season 2 jumped the shark,
Okay.
and then got to that finale, and I really enjoyed it. But this time through,
It's over the top in parts. It is.
this time through, I think you have to find a way to live with the over the topness. It's sort
Yeah.
of like its own form of camp. I keep getting back to that in
Yeah.
this conversation, but like the events reach a level of theater that becomes sort of operatic in nature.
Right.
You know, we talked about the
Yeah.
last time where it's like, wow, there's a lot of really
Like,
artistic serial killers in Baltimore. But if you start thinking, relating to it as sort of opera or its own
Yeah.
genre,
Yeah, and specifically the drama has an operatic quality to it.
yeah. I mean, obviously the visuals are stunning, but
Very artsy.
yes, the you know the we watched there's a scene where two characters are having sex and two other characters are having sex,
Oh yeah.
and then in the scene is edited so that in their imaginations you see them interacting with each other in bed and touching each other and kissing each other and all of that, because they're both thinking about other people
Yeah.
during these sex scenes, and the level of artistry that must have gone into that sequence to know where to film this person at this angle, you know.
Wasn't there even a couple of match cuts in there?
Yeah, probably.
Speaking of match cuts.
But
yeah.
that 1 minute sequence must have been storyboarded to the hilt.
It probably took a long time to film.
Yeah,
too.
and just thinking
Yeah.
about the 22 episode season in Fool for Love and the functional uh, um, setup shot, wide shot, 1 2 1 2, move to the next scene. There's so little of that in Hannibal. I mean, you can't every scene of dialogue between two characters cannot be a constantly reinvented artistic composition, because you will ultimately fatigue your audience.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
why Fool for Love is remarkable, because it uses that very flashy editing technique without it feeling cheap or flashy. It just feels
It feels natural. It
energetic
flows.
and flows, and
Yeah.
it's really beautiful. So yeah, it's not that Hannibal is devoid of that, but the time it takes to storyboard and compose something like a film in a season of a show, it's surprising. I suppose it's an argument for the 12 episode season, because you can spend more time on visual composition and more budget on an individual episode rather than spreading that over 22.
Right.
But I
But
don't know.
yeah, there's so many times watching it where I've said out loud, "Wow, yeah, that's over the top," but I don't care, like, because
Yeah.
everything else is just so good, and something being over the top is in no way an argument for saying that it's bad, because it's not bad by any means. It just it's just over the top, you know.
Yeah, yeah. There's a word for it that is not springing to mind. It's not gaudy, because gaudy has a connotation to it,
Yeah.
or garish. But I don't know. I don't know. It's very interesting. I'm glad you're enjoying it. We'll report back in when we finish the series.
We certainly will.
I think, given where we're at, I'm gonna go ahead and save the viewer question for next time. We went a little bit long today for
Wow, this has been a long one, yeah.
yeah. So before so yeah, we'll do. There's a fun question about theme in television that I wanted to share with you. But we'll get to that next time. So before we get to the fanfic reading, I just want to let you know that I'm at Ian Nittram on Twitter.
And I am at Lack of Surprise 1 on Twitter. That's all one word with the number 1 at the end.
And it's youtube.com/the passion of the nerd. If you'd like to support the channel and keep us flush with Destiny, Silver, and Exterminator fees, you can do so at patreon.com/passion of the nerd. With the $5 and up club, you can join us in the Hangout in 1 month to talk about Buffy vs. Dracula and the Angel episode Judgment. We're starting season 5 2, which I'm excited by. We're going to pass me at some point where I am in the episode guides.
It's coming.
Which will be interesting. It is coming. By the way, the replay is up for the Hangout discussion for last week, where we did part 2 of Restless. It's in the... If you look on the channel main page under playlists, there's one called Patreon Readings. The discussions always expand my mind about the show, but this time especially, Wonder came up with a fan theory about the Cheese Man
Oh, really?
that blew us all away.
I'm going to have to
It was
go and check that out then.
so good. The discussion went almost 4 hours. So it's a very, very long discussion. But
Yeah, I was busy pulling my apartment apart.
yeah, it was a long discussion, but I think worth it. They always bring up such wonderful ideas that really turn the prism on the show for me.
You can also support us by grabbing yourself something from the online store over at passionofthenerd.com. T-shirts, hoodies, mugs, phone cases, all the stuff you'd expect to find in an online merch store.
We need to make some new stuff.
We do. We've been talking about that for a long while.
Yeah. And if you're an Amazon Prime member, you may not realize it, but you can support me for free by using your monthly Amazon Prime Twitch subscription at twitch.tv/thepassionofthenerd. But if you use Twitch for people who actually stream, I recommend that you save it and use it for them. All right, let's go to the fanfic reading now. Here is Gone. Terri Botta, Chapter 29. Are you going to be able to do this? Buffy asked as she and Spike walked to the mansion. He set his jaw tight and took a deep breath. I'll do what I have to do. Even if it means killing Drusilla. I'd rather it not come to that, he admitted. She stopped and gave him an angry glare. It irritated him. He told her about Drew and sought her help. What more did she want? What? He demanded. You don't want her dead. Of course I don't want her dead. She's my bloody sire, and my dark princess for 100 years. Need I remind you that you sought my help because she was a big hoe? He scowled. I remember very well, Slayer, and I remember her leaving me twice until I left for good. I was faithful to her till the end, till she tossed me away for not being what she wanted me to be. Her anger faded to sadness and recrimination, and he knew she was thinking of Riley. I get that. Speaking of exes, whatever happened to Harmony? She asked, changing the subject. Packed her off to L.A. a couple days ago. She'd come back from a shopping spree over that way, and I decided it was best for her to get lost with all the trouble with Glory hanging about. Ben's too stupid to not let something spill, so I boxed her up, stuff, and sent her off. It hadn't actually happened quite so caustically or as cruel as he made it sound. In actuality, he sat her down and explained to her that he couldn't love her because his heart belonged to another. He allowed her to think that he was still in love with Drusilla and did nothing to correct her assumptions. They'd made love again, slowly, one last time. And the first time he had taken her without anger or fantasy in his heart. She'd cried afterwards, and he had shed a tear or two, but she hadn't tried to stay. He saw her off the night before Dawn stopped by to visit him, her many piles of clothes stuffed in 2 burgeoning suitcases he had stolen from the mall. She'd kissed him goodbye, told him she loved him, and that if he could ever let go of Drew, he would know where to look for her. Then she was gone, and he was alone. But that was probably for the best. He came out of his memory to see Buffy glaring at him. What did I do now? You don't treat your women very well, do you, Spike? Bloody hell, I don't. I gave Drew everything she ever wanted. I was her slave for 100 years, he snapped back. And Harmony? She loved you, and you kicked her to the curb. I remember what you did to her during the whole Gem of Amara fiasco. He flinched and gritted his teeth. Harmony was a mistake. I admit it. Drew had left me again. I was weak, and she was there. I was wrong to think I could love her, and she... He stopped, sudden realization hitting him, and stared at Buffy like a deer caught in the headlights. She knows. She knows I love her. Oh, bloody hell. You heard your mom and I talking the other night, didn't you? He said. She looked away. Her lips pursed, and he knew that she had. Balls. I suppose that you now will tell me that I am a soulless and evil thing, incapable of real feelings, he accused. He saw her choosing her words carefully, and when she spoke it was with forced calmness. Giles has told me that you admitted to loving me while you were under the truth spell, she said, making him flinch and curse Giles. That means that whatever you think you feel, you believe it to be true. She looked at him, her face resolved. But Spike, you have to know that whatever you think you feel can't be real. Bollocks. She drew herself up, facing him. Demons can't love. They don't have souls. Both Angel and Giles have told me so. He snarled. And if Watcher and Great Poof say it, then it must be true. Is that it? Newsflash, Slayer. Demons can love. We can love quite well. Your problem is that if that's true, then Angelus could have loved you after he lost his precious soul. What you don't realize is that he did, and that was why he hated you so much. Love was and has always been a weakness for Angelus. You made him feel it, and he couldn't handle that. That was Angelus's problem, not a demon one. Now me, on the other hand, I've always been love's bitch, and I'm not afraid to admit it. He advanced on her, and she looked alarmed for a moment, so he stopped. I love you, Slayer. I know I love you. I know it's wrong, and everything against everything we both are, but I can't help how I feel. She shook her head, parroting back what she had been taught. Demons can't love. Bollocks, and you know it. I love you. I love you so much it chokes me. Seeing you in pain and knowing I don't have the right to comfort you. Wanting so badly to touch you and knowing I can't. That I'm not allowed. Accepting what little crumbs you toss me. This is hell for me every day. Fine, then leave. No one's making you stay, she snapped. He scowled at her, eyes flashing yellow. No, I won't leave you. Won't be like all those other wankers that left you and made you feel like you were unworthy of love. You may not love me. You may never love me. But I don't walk out on the ones I love. I protect them with everything I've got. She looked at him, and he knew she was recalling the words and promise she had overheard him make to Joyce. And Mom and Dawn? Or just being nice to them to get into my good graces? He recoiled, offended. Hell no. Like your Mom and Niblet. They're family to me. Wouldn't hurt a hair on their heads, even if I didn't have this bloody chip in my brain. He stopped, and they stared at each other, both reeling and breathing hard, until he looked away. Rupert and Scooby's a family, too. Right now, Drew has one of them. We got bigger problems than what's going on between you and me, Slayer. Let's deal with the most urgent things first, shall we? Neither of us is going anywhere, and we can deal with all this stuff later. She stared at him a little bit longer, then her shoulders dropped, and she nodded. Okay. Deal. For now, let's go rescue Giles. But we'll have to talk about it eventually, Spike. He sighed and agreed, following her as she marched off. Don't I know it? Drusilla was true to her word and did not use any of the toys on the bed upon him. She did keep him tied, however, trussed to the chair with barely enough room to breathe. He bided the time by using some meditation techniques and mental conditioning exercises in preparation for doing battle with Drusilla. Knowing she had raided his mind before gave him extra incentive to protect himself from her psychic attacks. He was busy focusing all his attention on a single spot of dirt on the rug, when movement in his peripheral vision distracted him. At first, he thought it was Drusilla coming back into the room, but then realized that it had approached from the wrong direction. His senses were tingling, and he tensed. Then something touched his back lightly. He jumped and gasped, but a cool hand covered his mouth to muffle the noise. "It's okay, Watcher. It's me." Spike's voice whispered in his ear, and the hand was pulled away. "Oh, thank God. Spike, Drusilla's here," he whispered back. "I know," came the reply from behind him as he heard the sound of ropes being cut. "Is Buffy with you?" "Yeah, we split up when we came in. Where's Drew?" "I don't know, but she left the room about an hour ago and hasn't been back since," he replied, pulling his now free arms forward and working his hands to return the circulation to the numb limbs. He saw Spike take a glance at the bed, saw the shoulders tense and the faint shudder run through the vampire's body. "Did she hurt you?" Spike asked softly. "Oddly, no." Spike gave a tight nod. "Can you stand?" He felt his legs and wiggled his toes, grimacing at the pain as they came back to life. "I'll be able to in a minute." "Don't know if we have that much time, Watcher." "Well, I'm doing my best here," Spike snorted. "Might have to carry you out if it comes to it." "Over my dead body," he snipped back, rubbing his calves. That can be arranged, Watcher. Drew comes back, we gotta bugger out of here and fast." "Too late, my William," came Drew's voice from the doorway, and they both froze. Turning their heads as one, they faced the vampiress standing by the entrance. She was glassy-eyed and flush, and she held a bloody chef's knife in her hands. "Oh, good Lord, Buffy!" Looking over at Spike, he saw an expression of horror that he was certain was on his own face. Spike moved so that he was standing between him and Drusilla, and Giles could barely see the vampires from around Spike's body. "Drusilla, darling," Spike began, but was cut off by Drusilla's gasp of disbelief. "No, no, no, it's all wrong. All wrong, burning crickets in your head," Drusilla cried, her eyes going crazed and wild. "Drew," Spike tried again, but she wasn't listening. "It's not true. It's not too late. I can cut it out." Giles had rarely seen a vampire move with the true speed that they were capable of, but he saw the blur that was Drusilla streak towards them. Spike barely had enough time to move further between them before she had him within reach. She grabbed Spike with one hand and literally threw him on the bed. He landed on top of several of the weapons she had gathered there, and his legs kicked off a mace and 2 daggers. Both vampires let twin screams out as Drusilla straddled her prone child and stabbed him in the chest. Cut it out, swirling nasties behind your eyes. What have you done to my William?" Barely able to stand, he rose to his feet, horrified as Drusilla continued to repeatedly stab Spike while he howled in agony. "She can see my soul, and she's trying to cut it out." Reaching a shaky hand to grab the fallen mace, he swung with all his strength and slammed Drusilla in the skull. She let out a shriek and collapsed as the blow knocked her from the bed and sent her crashing into the wall. "Spike!" Giles gasped, dropping the mace and staggering to look at him. Blood was splattered all over the bed, and the vampire's shirt was slashed to ribbons, much like his chest. But he was still undead and conscious. Pain-filled eyes looked at him from the contorted demon face. "Find Buffy," the vampire ordered through his gasps of anguish. "I'm here," Buffy said as he turned his head to see the Slayer standing in the doorway, one hand holding a bleeding cut on her upper arm, while the other held a stake at the ready. "Buffy!" he cried, joy and relief flooding into him. "Where's Drusilla?" she demanded. He pointed to the crumpled body on the floor, and Buffy moved in for the kill. "No!" he heard Spike beg. The vampire was trying to sit up, one hand reaching out in supplication. Buffy paused, her eyes growing wide at the sight of him. "No, please, I don't care what you do to her. Chain her up and toss her in the cargo hold of a slow boat to China, or whatever, but please, don't kill her, please." He'd never seen Spike plead for anything, but the open grief on the vampire's face was heartbreaking. Buffy lowered her stake and made a tentative step towards the bed. "What happened?" "Drusilla tried to cut out Spike's heart," he explained, hedging just a bit. Spike gave him a grateful look and slumped back to the mattress, drained. He lost consciousness a moment later. "Geez, talk about a bad hack job," Buffy breathed. "I hope that wasn't his favorite shirt." He gave her a look that spoke of the inappropriateness of her humor, and she had the decency to look contrite. "Is it safe to move him?" she asked. He nodded. "My guess is that if we use one of the velvet curtains as a gurney, it should be all right. We just have to get him outside. Mom said she was calling Xander before we left to come here. He should be here soon." Giles acknowledged her answer as he reached for one of the dusty curtains, tugging on it. Buffy reached past him, yanking the curtain and the wooden rod down with one pull. She gave him a guilty look back, but he just smiled at her. Then they worked together to wrap Spike in the heavy fabric, grimacing at the amount of blood the vampire had lost. "We should contain Drusilla. There's no telling when she will awaken," he warned. Buffy agreed and trussed the unconscious vampiress in 2 sets of her own chains. When they were ready, Buffy picked Spike up and carried him towards the exit. "Buffy, do you—" "Nah, I got him. For a dead guy, he's not that much dead weight," she replied, trying to make a joke, but the humor didn't make it to her eyes. "I'll come back in for the nut job." He gave a strained nod and followed her as they made their way outside to wait for Xander to arrive. Jack,
Ian,
what are you up to this week?
well, as usual, I'm working on the Patreon bonus videos. With everything going on the last few days, I haven't had any time to work on anything. We've even missed our movie nights because I haven't been available. But come Thursday, I'll be getting back into the groove of things. I also want to try and get some work done on my debut video that I've been planning for years now, like literally years. I mean, debut video. I've done a lot of editing for like Ian and a few other things, but this will be like my own thing. But yeah, other than that, I'll just be trying to keep my sanity together and camping out in my mostly empty apartment until I can get everything back in and set up. And yeah, what about you, brother? What are you up to?
Working on the Darla script. Now that Fool for Love is out of the way, I've also picked up the novel, which I got, I don't know, 15, 20,000 words on before I shelved it to get through Fool for Love. Read a bit of it today, and just to kind of get back into it, I was like, oh, I like a lot of this. There's some fun ideas. There's a lot of ideas in it that I'm enjoying, so I'm happy to pick that up again. And some of the other resolutions I need to do as well: weight loss, diet, exercise, yada, yada, yada. I think that's it for this week. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate you. Please take care of yourselves. Take a deep breath, relax. Everything is going to be all right.
Will it? They sure? I hope so. But how will it be okay and all right, Ian? How?
I don't know. It's a mystery. Goodbye, everybody.
Thanks, guys.